listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in today as we close out LSU's bye week. Take a look a little bit at the future for one LSU Tiger, which is starting to become more and more of a consensus as the college football season goes along, and depending on how it plays out, could create a fairly interesting spot for LSU in 2025. So we will touch on that. And also want to kind of close out the week where we started it, and that was talking about Caden Durham, because Brian Kelly talked about the emergence and Caden Durham starting to really receive national praise as well around the college football world too. So he's kind of just becoming unavoidable. So a quick thought there as well. Remember to like, subscribe, share, follow me on social media at Musso Matthew. You can follow me, that's on Twitter X. Follow me Facebook and Instagram as well. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. All right, let's go ahead and dive right into it, shall we? You know, come February, that really kicks off mock draft season, right? And I know mock drafts don't get everyone excited, and I don't blame you. It's one person's opinion. How accurate really are they? I totally get it. In reality, though, mock draft season is all year round. It never really ends. NFL talent evaluators, NFL draft analysts, they're always looking at these players and always trying to decide where they slot in. We've talked an awful lot in recent time about the draft history that LSU has made with all their first-round picks. Their multiple first-round picks and in back-to-back years and all the firsts, and you have a chance for more of that this year. You have the chance to have 3 first-round picks in back-to-back drafts for the first time ever at LSU. You have a chance to have an offensive tackle taken for the first time in 30-some-odd years. You have a chance to have 2 offensive tackles taken. I mean, there's a lot more history potentially to be made for LSU in the draft this year and coming up in 2025. But one thing that is starting to become consensus here through the first 5 weeks of the season is the draft projection for LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. And it's really interesting because I sat here and talked all offseason about the unknown still being the biggest thing with Garrett Nussmeier. You had seen him have 1 start at LSU. Like before this season, the playing time was really limited and just 1 start. We all knew about the tools. We'd seen him in camps. We'd seen him everywhere else. But the unknown in the game still loomed large. And it's becoming more and more clear. Garrett Nussmeier is a really darn good quarterback. What we thought is being confirmed. That's a good thing. That's also going to lead to rising draft stock no matter what the sample size is. Quarterback is the most important position in football. I'm not telling you anything new. You all know that. And there is nothing valued higher in the NFL than a franchise quarterback. You consistently watch teams take swing after swing after swing after swing in the draft trying to find that franchise quarterback. Because you can't really win anything of significance without a franchise quarterback. So if you show any sustained success in that draft year, you have a chance to rise. And Garrett Nussmeier is doing that, and he's rising. And he's rising into the first round. Just won't bury the lead really anymore. The first time I saw a projection for Garrett Nussmeier in the first round was September 4th. September 4th. It was by Chris Trapasso over at CBS Sports. He had Garrett Nussmeier going 23rd overall to the Dallas Cowboys. Y'all, that was after 1 game for LSU. I saw another one a few weeks later that again had Garrett Nussmeier in the first round. a little bit higher. I believe this was after the South Carolina game. And he's up there in that 15 to 17 range. And now, on Thursday, over at Yahoo Sports, a mock draft drops that has Garrett Nussmeier projected 10th overall to the New York Giants. That is 3 mock drafts in 5 weeks that are projecting Garrett Nussmeier as a first-round pick. And I think we all knew the decision was going to be interesting for Garrett Nussmeier. I'm here to tell you right now the decision on what to do with his extra year. He has that 5th year, right? Or that 6th year, I guess you'd say. I'm here to tell you right now, again, something that you already know. If Garrett Nussmeier is a first-round draft pick, he is not coming back to LSU next season. And we'll get to that. But I purposely wait to talk about this to see if it gets to this point where you're starting to see consensus. You know, I could see that mock draft on September 1st, or September 4th, and be like, oh, it's one game. Okay, let's calm down. But the deeper you get into the season and you see him lead the country in completions and, you know, be right there at the top of the SEC in multiple categories, the top of the country in multiple categories, and you're going to start to see the consensus grow, and you are. Then that's awesome for Garrett Nussmeier. Like, that is awesome for Garrett Nussmeier. It is awesome for LSU's program. Now, he's got a long way to go, and just as quickly as these projections rose, they can fall. But I want to caution you here as well. Nussmeier, even if he falls out of the first round, LSU might not be out of the woods. And let me go on record here as saying this as well. It would benefit LSU for Garrett Nussmeier to come back for another year. 100%. I know everybody loves Bryce Underwood. I love Bryce Underwood. I know everybody's concerned about, well, this is the number 1 quarterback in the country, 5-star freshman. If he comes in and doesn't get to play right away, he might leave. Or you look at a guy like Bryce Underwood and you say, okay, this guy is stuck with LSU through and through this recruitment, coming all the way down from Michigan for reasons that he's gone on the record of saying development is one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, he's going to LSU to coach on, to work under Joe Sloan, to do all of those things, to be Joe Burrow, to be Jay Daniels, to be Garrett Nussmeier. That's what this kid's coming down here for. He has said it. So you can look at it in that vein and go, okay, I think a guy with that mindset might understand coming here and being like, okay, that guy's here one more year, he's gone. I can sit, watch, learn, and then it's me. It's not like he's coming to sit behind a guy who's got, 2 more years at LSU. It'd be 1 year. So I don't freak out as much about that. And you would absolutely rather, the 5th-year veteran guy over true freshman. So it would greatly benefit LSU if Garrett Nussmeier came back. And I think it would be to a benefit of Garrett Nussmeier as well. But again, if he's projected a first-round pick, he's not coming back. But back to my original point, kind of went off on a tangent there. Apologies. Even if you start to see him slip out of these first-round projections, it doesn't necessarily mean he's not still out the door. I just want to caution for that as well. I've mentioned here before, and we've played some audio. Every week on the Eagle 98.1 Game Day pregame show, I sit down with Jim Nagy, head scout, executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl. Spent a bunch of time in NFL front offices, a bunch of time as an NFL scout for various teams across the league, most notably the Seattle Seahawks. And after that USC game, because I saw that mock draft, I asked Jim, heading into the Nichols, about Garrett Nussmeier's draft prospects and if he could play his way at that point into the back end of the first round. This is what Jim Nagy said.
Shoot, depending on how he plays this year, he might leave after this year, man. It's not out of the realm of possibility that this guy plays himself into being a first couple round pick. And again, at quarterback, I mean, I think for all these guys, if you're going to be a top 50 player, you at least have to, seriously consider leaving. So I think it's pretty safe to say that you have hit on a 3rd straight quarterback there for LSU, and I'm just excited to see what it looks like the rest of the year.
So, not out of the realm of the possibility that he plays himself into a first 2-round pick is what Jim said. Top 50 player, he'd have a decision to make. So even if he falls out of that first round and falls to day 2, if it's in that second round, you're still looking and going, ooh, Right now, Garrett Nussmeier is playing himself into a one and done. Now, again, there's a long way to go, but right now, draft analysts just 5 weeks into the season are telling you he's playing himself into a one and done. And I'm here to tell you again, I think it would benefit him, and definitely, I know it would benefit LSU for him to be back. And the other thing about that is you would see LSU dip into the transfer portal if Garrett Nussmeier does not come back, because you just wouldn't have any starting experience at the quarterback spot. Like, that is something they would absolutely do. So that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother angle to the whole Bryce Underwood conversation. Brian Kelly's too calculated to just leave himself, it's not to say that Underwood wouldn't start it and beat that guy out in that scenario, but Brian Kelly's way too calculated to just leave himself unguarded at the quarterback position and go in with no experience in the SEC. That's just not going to happen. So it's something we have to absolutely keep an eye on, but Garrett Nussmeier's draft stock is rising, and it's rising to a consensus. And right now, 5 weeks in, that consensus is first-round draft pick, which is awesome. Awesome for Garrett Nussmeier, awesome for the LSU program and the recruiting that it would lead to, and just continue the current trend, but also it would leave them with questions that would need to be answered. So we'll keep tracking that and keep an eye on it. But as you heard Jim Nagy there, and again, something that you all know, LSU's hit on a third straight quarterback. And it's just freaking awesome. Like, there was never a time I ever thought I'd sit here and say that. And it's just freaking incredible, man. LSU quarterback school. How about that? So we'll continue to track that, keep an eye on it. For what it's worth, in that mock draft from Yahoo Sports, Will Campbell was the first overall draft pick in that mock draft. So foul that away. While it looks like Will has struggled a little bit at points in this season, he's still dominant. He's still arguably the best offensive tackle in America, and he's still got a great future ahead of him. He's still arguably your best player as well. So that's awesome to see. For what it's worth as well, LSU had 4 first-rounders in that mock draft. Will Campbell, Garrett Nussmeier, Emory Jones, and Harold Perkins as well, which is great to see. You're starting to see that become more of a consensus as well, that Perkins remains in the top, in the first round of these mock drafts. It's, they're banking on him recovering quicker maybe than normal and being able to get into a camp. I mean, everyone rehabs differently. We'll have to see how that goes. I think it'd be awesome for Harold Perkins. We all know the talent that he is. And then, of course, 4 first-round picks would be the second most in LSU history. Of course, coming in just under the 2020 draft when they had 5 off of that great 2019 team. So we'll keep you posted on all of that. Okay, quickly here before we get out for the day, Caden Durham. Wanted to talk about him because, I mean, we've been talking about him, haven't we? But the nation's starting to talk about Caden Durham as well. And it's not overly surprising that LSU South Carolina game at 11 a.m. when he burst onto the scene was the second most watched game of the day that Saturday. So a lot of people around the country saw Caden Durham. And you have that lasting impression, and then you check box scores and see what he did against South Alabama and finally got a start, and everybody starts to really take notice. Caden Durham over at 247 Sports, they did a top 8 list of the top 8 freshmen so far in college football. Caden Durham came in at number 6 on that list. And in the write-up, they noted, Caden Durham coming in as a freshman, highly touted, all of those things, but wasn't really projected to contribute much for LSU. Now, he looks like the best running back on the team. And Brian Kelly alluded to this as well. Back on Tuesday, talked about Caden Durham just taking advantage of opportunity.
I think it's a freshman that's working through that transition of understanding the playbook, the nuances of playing the game, and just feeling more comfortable in everything that we do. And through his play, when he was given the opportunity in South Carolina, he made it happen. And so he's earned it through an opportunity that was given to him. But Jackson was a player that played last year that was in front of him. John Emery was in front of him. An injury happened there. Josh, obviously. So there was a number of backs that were already in front of him, so to speak, because of experience. And through opportunity, he's now taken advantage of it.
So many times that's how it happens for freshmen to get that playing time, y'all. We all think about these highly touted 5-star guys that just come in and start right away. you remember those guys because that is actually rare that happens, right? That's why those guys stand out. Normally, when freshmen emerge early, it's because they're able to take advantage of the slight opportunity that they get, and that's what Caden Durham's done. And the speed has a lot to do with it in all of that as well, and just his natural ability. I mean, the guy's got track speed. We know that he's going to run track at LSU. Like, he's a tremendous athlete. But I will tell you as well why LSU's able to put him on the field more often and really trust him as a freshman is where he is in pass protection. And we've played that cut from Joe Sloan multiple times on this show now from back in fall camp when Sloan talked about Durham and said he's advanced as a running back at this stage of his career. He's not just a guy to go in there and run the ball. He plays running back, all of it. And Brian Kelly was asked about his pass protection earlier in the week.
He is competent at pass protection. Competent is he has to think about it. So sometimes he's a click behind. We want it to be kind of an unconscious competence, which means he doesn't have to think about it. He just naturally does it, kind of like a Josh Williams. He's at that level of unconscious competence, and he knows naturally. That's where I'm supposed to be. I'm going to do it. I see it. I can go. He's got to think about it, and as he's processing, sometimes he's a little late, but he's competent, and he's working towards that next level.
So he doesn't give as glowing of a review of Joe Sloan, but a lot of freshman running backs aren't competent in pass protection. Him being competent is going to earn him more playing time. He has to think about it a little bit more than a guy like Josh Williams. Okay, I would expect that. He's a freshman. Josh Williams is in his 6th year in the program. Can he get the job done? So far, yeah, he can. Just maybe it's not as consistent, but I think they trust him enough there early for him to continue to see playing time, and he has to because he can break the game wide open on any given play. And I don't care what year you are in your college career. If you can do that, you need to touch the football. And if you can do that at a trustworthy level where you're not going to put the ball on the ground, you're not going to turn it over, you can pick up the pass protection every now and then, you're going to touch the football. And Caden Durham's going to continue to touch the football plenty for LSU. Is it in a starting role? I don't know. Does it need to be? Probably not. He just needs to get his touches and make the most of them when he does. Continue to make the most of his opportunity. He's done that through 5 weeks. SEC play is here. Can he do it now when the competition ratchets up? I think you feel a little bit more confident about that than maybe you would someone else because the first time you saw Caden Durham burst on the scene was against a really stingy and really good physical South Carolina front in the Southeastern Conference on the road with his team getting shellacked. So, yeah, that's a pretty good debut, and I think you feel good about him going forward. But, like we've said kind of throughout this week, time will tell. All of that's just a take. All of that's just an opinion. All of that's just a thought. It will play out in front of our eyes over the next 7 weeks. We'll be here to watch it, and we'll be here to have you covered right here on LSU Daily. Smash the like if you have not already. Get subscribed. Share. Please share. Please subscribe. Those are the 2 most important things. Follow me on social media as well. Twitter X at Musso Matthew. On Facebook and then Instagram as well at Matthew Musso1. Greatly appreciated. Be here next time for more. We'll kick off Ole Miss Week on LSU Daily.